What's up, guys? Back with another educational video, and this week we are once again talking about exercise timing. You might know a few weeks ago we did a video about exercise timing and its effects on strength, hypertrophy, and performance. And you probably walked away from that going, oh man, maybe, training in the afternoon is better, get better gains. But I would argue that the conclusion of that was not that afternoon training is better necessarily, but that it more matters about being consistent when it comes to performance and gaining lean body mass and strength and whatnot, because we do see that those neuromuscular decrements can be made up over time if you get adapted to morning training. And now we're just going to throw a wrench in there with a new study that examined exercise timing on fat loss. Now, this was a secondary analysis on a study. What a secondary analysis means is that it's not their primary goal. What they're looking at in a secondary analysis was not their primary goal. Now, why does that matter? Usually when you what's called power a study, you are powering it for your primary analysis endpoints. And when we say power, what that means is you are trying to determine how many participants you are going to need to detect differences between groups based on the metrics that you're looking at. So these secondary measurements, this study was not powered for that necessarily, but nonetheless, they decided to look and see if they could find something that was interesting. Again, this was part of a larger study and it's a sub-analysis. They looked at people who trained either in the morning, midday, or evening, or sporadic. And they defined sporadic as basically they did not do more than 50% of their sessions at a given time. So they were kind of spread all over the place. And in terms of morning, midday, or evening, you had to do at least 50% or more of your sessions at that time for you to be categorized there. Now, we're not really going to talk about the midday people because there weren't actually enough participants to really do an analysis of it. So this was a 10-month study and they had them exercise 5 times a week for about an hour each time, but they didn't really say times. They were more shooting for a calorie burn or energy expenditure. They were looking for anywhere from 400 to 600 calories expended per session. Now, if you know me, I've talked previously about the difficulties with, using calories burned according to some of these trackers or treadmills or whatever, in terms of they're usually not very accurate. But in this case, they're probably relatively precise. Now, what that means is, sure, maybe you get on there and maybe that treadmill is overestimating how many calories you burn by 20%. But if you go on one day and you burn 400 and you go on the next day and you burn 450, you probably did burn more the second day. You just don't know exactly how many more you burned. The fact that they were keeping it within this certain range, even though it's not necessarily accurate, probably was relatively precise. I think the way they did it is probably fine. It is a limitation, but this was a relatively free-living study. And what was cool was it was done over 10 months. They looked at their food intake. They also looked at total daily energy expenditure, basal metabolic rate, non-exercise physical activity, which is called NEPA. And the way they did that was they had them wear accelerometers on their hips. So basically anytime they moved, if their hip moved, it would detect movement. And they look at exercise energy expenditure as well. So they looked at basically most of the components of total daily energy expenditure, and they used doubly labeled water to measure total daily energy expenditure. Now, I have talked previously in some videos about the limitations of doubly labeled water for total daily energy expenditure. It's important to point out that it is not a direct measurement of energy expenditure. It is a surrogate measure. Like a direct measure would be like a metabolic chamber or metabolic ward, that sort of thing. So this is looking at the amount of that label that ends up in different pools of the body and using an equation to estimate their total daily energy expenditure, and that's important. So what did they find? They found that the people who exercised in the morning lost significantly more weight and more fat than the people who exercised at night. I think it was something like 5 kilograms more. Now that is very significant. I was surprised to see that. The first thing you go to is, well, are they getting like a greater calorie burn? Is there something about exercise in the morning that maybe supercharges your metabolism? And the results in terms of energy expenditure data are kind of disappointing. There was no difference in BMR. There was no difference in NEPA, no difference in exercise energy expenditure. So what does that mean? Well, then we've got to see differences in food intake, right? And there is some evidence that people who exercise in the morning tend to eat less throughout the rest of the day, whereas the converse may not be true. Now, they didn't see differences in energy intake either. Now, here's the big caveats. One, people lie. When it comes to food intake, people absolutely lie. And they do it without even realizing it. But probably more practically, they weren't monitoring their food intake the entire time. They can't. It's a free living study. It would be impossible. So what they did was they would have them come in at a few different time points. They had them go into a cafeteria and eat several of their meals over a few days and just looked at how much did they eat. Now, I don't want to criticize the researchers because within the confines of what they were doing, which is a free living study, this was kind of the best they could do outside of supplying them with all their meals, but there's even limitations to that, and that is obviously gets to be very expensive. They didn't show significant differences in energy intake. Now, what's important to note is by the end of the experiment, there was about an absolute difference of over 200 calorie per day intake when measured between the late exercisers and the early exercisers, but it wasn't statistically significant. And here's where that secondary analysis part comes in. Remember, the study was not powered to detect these differences. It is possible, we can't say for sure, but it is possible that the people who were exercising early simply ate less throughout the rest of the day. And even the sporadic exercisers, people who tended to kind of exercise just randomly, they actually had lower absolute energy intake, although again, there was no statistical difference. You say, well, they ate 200 less calories, that explains it. Yeah, but if you have so much variation between subjects, you have what's called a high degree of standard deviation. It'll basically make it so that between groups, there's no statistical difference because you have to achieve what we call a p-value of less than 0.05. It means there's less than a 5% chance that the difference that is being observed between these groups is just due to random chance. Because you can go out and you can find differences in a lot of different things, but it could be completely random chance. And if you have a high p-value, it usually means you have a high standard deviation. There's a lot of variance amongst the data, and it's likely that the differences in the averages are simply due to randomness. Whereas if you have a very low p-value, it's telling you that, hey, it looks like there is a treatment effect here, and it's probably not due to random chance. So what I want you guys to take away from that is it is possible that there were differences in energy intake between these groups. In fact, I think that's the most likely explanation, especially because they were free living and they were only assessing them at certain time points. And again, whenever you monitor something, whatever you're monitoring will change its behavior. And we see this right down to the level of particles in atoms. When you monitor it, it changes its behavior. When you monitor people, they change their behavior. And so when they know they're coming in to have their meals monitored, guess what? They behave differently. It's a limitation of nutrition research that is very, very difficult to get around. But I can't say for sure that's what happened, but that is what I think is most likely. Now, in terms of the energy expenditure data, they looked at their total daily energy expenditure, and there appears to be about a 90 calorie difference once they adjusted for these people's fat-free mass, and they have to do a correction for that just to make sure that everything is standardized because fat-free mass increases energy expenditure. Now, it wasn't statistically different, but again, you're having this kind of trend towards maybe a favorable outcome of exercising early. And there is some data out there suggesting if you train early that it might have better effects on insulin sensitivity and those sorts of things. Now, I think it's important to understand that total daily energy expenditure and doubly labeled water is somewhat of a messy measurement, and there can be quite a bit of noise in that data. I'm more confident that there was probably differences in energy intake that account for the bulk of this. These people, if you just look at the study on the surface and you say, well, there's no difference in energy expenditure, there's no difference in energy intake, yet the people who exercised early lost over 10 pounds more than the people who exercise late. So obviously, we just need to throw out the laws of thermodynamics because it's obvious that this study has proven them wrong. No, that's not what it shows. It was not powered to detect these differences. And I think also if they were trying to detect these differences specifically, they probably would have designed the study a little bit differently. Remember, this was only a secondary analysis, not the primary analysis of the study. I think it is much more likely that differences in energy intake explain this stuff, especially because they weren't being monitored continuously with their intake. And it seems that there's already some data trending that way, about a 200 calorie per day difference. And we know that people tend to fib about what they eat. Now, practical takeaways. When should you train? You should train when you can train most consistently, because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. If you tell me you have the flexibility to train whenever, and maybe fat loss is a bigger priority than performance, then maybe that's a strong case for training in the morning. But if you like training in the afternoon, if that's what you can be consistent with, if that's when you feel best at, this study is not a reason to stop training in the afternoon. And the other thing to keep in mind is this was just aerobic exercise. So we don't know what this means for resistance training. And the subjects were overweight and obese. I don't know how that might change things, but it could change things. So try to keep this all in context. It is another piece of a puzzle. I think it's a really cool study. I think it's a cool secondary analysis, but I'm not ready to make large-scale recommendations that everybody should train in the morning. I don't think that's what it's telling us. Again, I think that if you train in the morning and you enjoy training in the morning, keep on training in the morning, and maybe you're getting an additional benefit. But I think it's probably more so from appetite suppression than it is from like some kind of crazy metabolic boost. And we do see that. There are some studies to show that exercise actually helps with appetite suppression, now up to a certain point. In fact, there was a study that I discussed in my book, Fat Loss Forever, that was done in the 1950s looking at Bengali workers, where they stratified them into sedentary, lightly active, moderately active, or basically heavy labor job. And they looked at their energy intakes. And what they found was from lightly active to heavily active, basically they linearly increased their energy intake to match their expenditure. But people who were sedentary actually consumed more calories than people who were lightly active and even moderately active. So it appears that exercise may actually help sensitize you to satiety signals and actually help improve satiety so that you're not eating so much throughout the day. The other thing too is when you're being active, it's just hard to eat. If you're being active, you're not like sitting on your couch engaging in behaviors like watching TV or being at a desk that are more conducive to snacking and those sorts of things. So that's also another caveat to keep in mind. It looks like there may be benefits to training in the morning. It looks like there may be benefits to training in the afternoon. You should choose what you find to be easiest to stick to in the long term. And I might say that you're probably better off trying to be consistent with one or the other. And I think that's where you get the best performance benefits. Although in this study, I didn't discuss it, but the people who sporadically exercised actually lost a little bit more weight than the people who exercised late, but they didn't lose as much as the people who exercised early. But for performance, I think that sporadic timing is probably suboptimal. All right, guys, that's it. If you like the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it, and I'll catch you next time.